The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the slow tick of the clock on the wall. The roast chicken I'd cooked sat untouched on the table, its aroma fading into the silence that had replaced laughter long ago. Then Ethan Parker looked up from his plate and said the words that shattered 30 years of marriage. "Lydia, I can't do this anymore. I need a real family." For a moment, I thought I hadn't heard him right. My hand froze mid-air, a piece of bread slipping from my fingers. "A real family?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "Ethan, what does that even mean?" He sighed, his eyes refusing to meet mine. "You know what it means. We've been trying for years, Lydia. We both wanted children. It's not your fault, but it's not enough anymore." My throat went dry. I stared at him, at the man who once held me as if I were his whole world. Now his words made me feel like nothing more than an unfinished promise. "So what happens now?" I managed to ask, though my voice came out barely above a whisper. He pushed his chair back slowly, like the decision had already been made long before tonight. "I've already filed the papers," he said quietly. "You deserve someone who can give you more than I can." I sat there, my eyes fixed on the flickering candle between us, its flame trembling just like my heart. The walls seemed to close in, memories pressing down from every direction, birthdays, anniversaries, Sunday mornings with pancakes and music. "You filed for divorce without telling me?" I said, a sharp pain slicing through my chest. He nodded, guilt shadowing his face. "I'm sorry, Lydia, but this house, this life, it's become heavy. I feel trapped." "Trapped?" I repeated softly. "By me?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. He stood, grabbed his jacket, and walked toward the door. His footsteps echoed like thunder in the silence. When the door closed, it wasn't just the sound of him leaving, it was the sound of my world collapsing into quiet. I sat alone at the table, staring at his empty chair. The clock ticked louder, cruelly counting the seconds of a life that had just changed forever. My gaze fell on the photograph hanging above the fireplace. Our wedding day. We were so young, smiling, full of hope. I reached out to touch the frame, my fingers trembling. "Have you ever felt unwanted in your own family?" I whispered to no one. "Tap that heart so I know I'm not alone." The following days blurred together.
The retirement home was not what she'd promised. It smelled like bleach and sadness. People sat staring at television screens with blank eyes. The staff smiled too brightly, their words clipped, rehearsed. My room had one small window. It faced the back alley, where garbage trucks came every morning. I spent hours staring out of it, waiting for a bird to land on the railing, for a ray of sunlight to find me. But most days, only the grey sky kept me company. At night, I'd sit with my photo album. Each picture was a world of its own. Birthdays, picnics, Sunday dinners, my daughter's wedding day. I used to be the center of that world. Now, I was just a memory with a name tag on my door. One evening, I heard a knock. It was Mary, my neighbor from down the hall. 82, with sharp wit and kind eyes. "New here, huh?" she asked, handing me a cup of lukewarm tea. "Yes," I said, forcing a smile. "My daughter thought I'd be happier here." Mary laughed softly. "That's what they all say, dear. You'll get used to it, or you'll find a way out." Her words stayed with me. Find a way out, but out to where? That night, I lay awake thinking of my husband again. How he used to hold my hand during thunderstorms. How he said, "Promise me you'll never stop living, even when I'm gone." I had promised, but somewhere along the way, life had quietly left me behind. A few weeks later, Emily stopped answering my calls. At first, she said she was busy. Then her number changed. That's when the loneliness stopped being quiet. It started screaming inside me. I would walk in the garden, watching families visit other residents, bringing flowers, laughter, hugs. No one came for me. One afternoon, I sat by the fountain, tossing small pebbles into the water. Each ripple reminded me of the years I'd given to others. Love, care, sacrifices, all fading away into circles that disappeared too soon. "Have you ever felt unwanted in your own family?" I said softly, looking at the phone camera I'd propped against my purse. "Tap that heart symbol so I know I'm not alone." My voice cracked at the end. I hadn't meant to record anything that day, but I did, and somehow it made me feel seen again. That night, I uploaded the video to a small Facebook group for widows I'd joined weeks ago. I didn't expect anything. By morning, there were thousands of likes, hundreds of comments, women from all over the country saying, "I feel you. You're not alone. You are strong, Grandma." For the first time in months, I smiled without forcing it. A week passed, then another. The nurse began calling me the famous lady. Apparently, people were asking about me. The old woman who spoke about love and loss. They said my words gave them courage. I started recording more, not for fame, but for healing. I'd sit by my little window, talking softly to whoever might be listening. "Sometimes silence hurts more than words," I said in one video. "Comment true if you've ever felt that pain." Every message I received felt like a thread stitching me back together. Still, every night before sleeping, I whispered a small prayer. "God, if there's still a plan for me, show me where to go next." Then one morning, something unexpected happened. A young man in a clean uniform knocked on my door. "Mrs. Langley?" he asked. "Yes." "I'm from the community center downtown. We've been watching your videos. Our seniors program would love to have you come speak. Maybe share your story." I stared at him, stunned. "Me?" He smiled. "Yes, Mom. People need your kind of honesty." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. After months of being invisible, someone saw me again. Not as a burden, but as a voice. I agreed. My hands trembled as I packed my little purse, not with fear, but with something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. When I stood on that small stage in the community center, facing a room full of people, widows, single mothers, lonely souls, I felt my husband's presence beside me. I told them everything. The loss, the rejection, the quiet strength that grew in the cracks of heartbreak. When I finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Afterward, a young woman came up to me crying. "Mom," she said, "your story saved me." I was about to give up, but now I want to live. That night, I sat by the fountain again under the soft glow of streetlights. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "Tom, maybe this was your plan all along." But just as I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. A message popped up from an unknown number. "Mom, please don't block this number. I need to talk to you." It was Emily. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. The world around me seemed to fade away. Only those words glowed. Was it guilt, regret, or something else she wanted to say? I took a deep breath. My thumb hovered over the screen. And then I pressed open. They say memories fade with time, but mine don't. Some nights, they come alive so clearly that I can almost smell the apple pie cooling on the kitchen counter, hear Tom's laughter echo through the hallway, and see little Emily running through the garden with her hair flying in the wind. Those were the golden years. Or so I thought. Back then, our small house in Cedar Falls was always full of warmth. Tom worked 2 jobs after the factory closed, and I took shifts at the diner. We didn't have much, but somehow we had everything. Emily would sit on the counter while I cooked, swinging her legs. "Mom, when I grow up, I'll buy you a big house," she used to say. And I'd laugh. "I don't want a big house, sweetheart. I just want you to visit Funny." How wishes age differently than people do. The table was always full on Sundays, Tom carving the roast, Emily setting out the plates, her giggling about college dreams. We'd talk about everything back then. Hopes, jobs, silly neighbors. But after Tom got sick, those conversations changed. It started with quiet dinners. Then the quiet spread to everything else. Emily would eat in silence, her eyes fixed on her phone. Tom would smile weakly, pretending not to notice how distant she'd grown. One night, when his cough had gotten worse, I heard them talking in the hallway. "Dad," she whispered, "why don't you sell the house? You could move closer to me. I'd take care of Mom." Tom chuckled softly. "Sweetheart, your mother belongs here. Every corner of this place is her memory." Emily didn't answer, but I heard her sigh. Long, heavy, full of something I couldn't name then.
That night, Lydia couldn't sleep. She kept the letter beside her bed, the ink blurred from her tears. But something about Noah, the man who'd given her the silver key, started to stir questions in her mind. The way he had looked at her house, the quiet recognition in his eyes. 2 days later, she decided to clean her late husband's old study, a room she hadn't entered in years. Dust lay thick over the furniture, like time itself had stopped there. As she moved aside a stack of papers, she noticed a small wooden box with a lock that perfectly matched Noah's silver key. Her heart raced. With trembling hands, she turned the key. Inside were several old documents and a faded letter addressed to Lydia Matthews. "Do not open until you're ready." Her knees weakened as she sank into the chair. The handwriting was Richard's. She hesitated for a long while before opening it. The first line made her chest tighten. "If you're reading this, it means the truth can't stay buried any longer. Have you ever found something that changed the way you saw your entire life? Comment true if you've ever felt that moment when the past suddenly knocks again." The letter continued. "I didn't leave because of you. I left because someone made me choose. There are things you never knew. About the baby, about Noah, about why I couldn't stay." Lydia's hands shook violently. She read the name again. Noah. The same man who had been helping her. The same man who looked at her like he'd known her forever. Her mind raced through years of memories, moments she thought were coincidences. His kindness, his concern, his strange familiarity. "What are you hiding, Richard?" she whispered. And then she saw the final line of the letter, smudged but still legible. "If Noah ever finds you, know that he's the only one I trusted with the truth." Lydia's world spun. She clutched the letter to her chest, heart pounding. "What truth?" she murmured, eyes filling with confusion and dread. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance as the first drops of rain hit the window. Somewhere, she thought she saw a figure standing near the edge of her yard, watching. But when she blinked, it was gone. Her breath trembled. Something told her that everything she believed about her marriage, her loneliness, and even Noah was about to change. And as the storm grew louder, she whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, I'll ask him." But deep down, Lydia already knew whatever Noah had to say would change everything.
Now I know what it was. Greed wears a polite smile before it turns cruel. After Tom passed away, I found his journal. He'd written everything: his worries about money, his fear of leaving me alone, his plans for Emily's future. He'd even written about the house. "I want Mary to live here as long as she wants. It's hers." But when I showed the will to Emily, she looked at it, frowned, and said, "Mom, this can't be right. You don't know how to handle property papers. Dad probably meant to update it." Her husband Mike nodded beside her, too quickly. Yeah, it's better if we sort it out legally. You don't want the stress, do you? I remember staring at both of them, the room spinning slightly. I trusted them, completely. But I handed them the papers anyway, because when you're a mother, trust is not a choice, it's your instinct. Days later, the documents disappeared. Emily said she'd filed them safely. I never saw them again. That's when everything began to change. At first, it was little things. Emily correcting the way I folded laundry, asking if I could stay out of her way when guests came over. Then came the locked doors. Then came the day she said, "Mom, you need your own space." Own space. Funny how loneliness can be gift-wrapped as freedom. I spent the last night in that house sitting in Tom's chair, holding his old sweater. His scent was fading, and so was I. Sometimes I wonder, maybe she didn't mean to hurt me. Maybe life just hardened her in ways I'll never understand. Or maybe love, when mixed with ambition, turns blind. After Emily's message appeared on my phone, I couldn't sleep. Her words kept looping in my head. "Mom, please don't block this number. I need to talk to you." Why now? After months of silence? After everything? I typed a reply. "I'm listening." Her response came instantly. "There's something you should know about Dad's will." My fingers went cold. The air felt heavier. Was she finally admitting what I'd feared all along? Or was there something even darker I didn't know? Before I could reply, there was a knock at my door. It was Mary again, my neighbor from down the hall. She was holding 2 cups of cocoa. "You look pale, dear. Everything all right?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Just family things." Mary smiled gently. "Family things have a way of never staying buried, don't they?" "Do you ever miss your kids?" I asked. She chuckled softly. "Every day. But I also learned something. Sometimes love means letting go of people who no longer see your worth." Her words settled deep inside me, like soft rain soaking dry soil. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Tom's missing will. I remembered where he used to keep important papers, in the old cedar chest in our attic. Maybe there was another copy. But how could I get there now? The house wasn't mine anymore. I remembered one particular night, months before Tom died. A storm had hit and the power went out. I'd lit candles all around the house. Tom had asked me to sit beside him. "If something ever happens to me," he said quietly, "promise me you'll check the cedar chest. There's something for you there." At the time, I'd laughed it off. "Don't talk like that." Now his words haunted me like a whisper through time. Could it be that he'd left me something I never found? The next morning, I went to the director of the retirement home. "Sir," I began, "I need to go visit my old house, just for an hour." He frowned. "That's not allowed without family permission." Family permission. The irony stung. But later that day, Mary handed me something, a visitor's pass she'd borrowed from a volunteer friend. "Go," she whispered. "Sometimes answers don't wait." So I went. The house looked smaller now, colder.
Sandra looked disgusted. Ethan looked shattered. Lydia slowly turned toward the door. "You forgot what love meant, Ethan, and that's something no inheritance can ever buy back." Before she could leave, a voice from the corner of the room spoke, steady and strong. Noah Reynolds had been standing silently by the door all along. He stepped forward, holding a folder. "Actually, there's one more document," he said. "Lydia's not here to fight for a house. She's here to close a chapter." He handed the folder to the lawyer. Inside was a signed deed. Lydia had transferred the property back to charity. Ethan looked confused. You're giving it away?" Lydia smiled faintly. "It never belonged to me. It belonged to the love that built it. And love doesn't live in walls, it lives in hearts. The lawyer looked stunned. Mrs. Parker, this is... But Lydia interrupted softly. Final. She turned to Ethan one last time. I came here not to win, but to be free. The room was utterly still. No one dared to move. Sandra's lips trembled. Ethan looked as if years of guilt had aged him in minutes, and Lydia walked out, her steps slow but unbroken. Outside, the wind brushed her hair gently. She breathed deeply, feeling lighter than she had in decades. Have you ever spoken the truth and still been blamed? Tap heart symbol if that pain feels familiar. Her voice echoed quietly in narration. Sometimes all you have left is your dignity. And if that's all, it's enough. But as Lydia reached her car, she noticed something. In the distance, someone was watching from another vehicle. A woman with familiar eyes. Lydia froze, her heart pounding. Could it be Sandra's sister? Or someone else entirely? The woman smiled faintly and drove away. Lydia stood there, uneasy. The truth had been spoken, but something told her not everything had been revealed yet. She whispered to herself, so that's who's been pulling the strings all along. Her voice broke as a tear slipped down her cheek. But why? The screen fades to black, leaving one question hanging heavy in the air. Who was really behind Lydia's suffering all those years? The courtroom was filled with a thick, suffocating silence. Lydia Parker sat in the front row, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her face calm but her eyes heavy with years of quiet endurance. Across from her sat Ethan and Sandra, both pale and restless. The truth that had been buried for decades was now about to face the light. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked at Lydia's lawyer. Mrs. Parker, you may proceed. Lydia nodded slightly. Her lawyer, Mr. Green, stood. Your Honor, before we begin, I'd like to introduce a piece of evidence that was recently discovered, a recorded conversation between Mr. Ethan Parker and the late Mr. William Parker, Ethan's father. A murmur spread through the courtroom. Ethan's face went cold. That recording is private, he muttered. The judge looked at him sharply. If it's relevant to the case, it will be heard. The recording played. A crackling sound filled the speakers. Then came William Parker's voice, old but firm. Ethan, promise me you'll take care of Lydia. She deserves the house. She's suffered enough. Then Ethan's voice, dismissive and hard. She won't even know, Dad. I'll handle it. The papers will say it's mine. The courtroom gasped. Sandra turned toward Ethan, her face a mask of disbelief and shame. You lied to me, she whispered. Ethan's jaw clenched. I did what I had to do. Lydia's eyes glistened, but she didn't look triumphant, only deeply sad. Mr. Green continued, Your Honor, this proves not only deceit, but intentional suppression of inheritance documents meant for Mrs. Parker. The judge leaned back, silent for a long moment. Do you deny this recording, Mr. Parker? Ethan hesitated.
Emily's hand trembled on my arm as the sound of Mike's footsteps echoed up the stairs. Mom, please, she whispered, eyes wide with fear. Hide the paper. Before I could move, Mike appeared in the doorway, his expression tightening when he saw me crouched beside the cedar chest. What's going on here? He demanded. His voice was calm, too calm, the kind that carried quiet danger. I rose slowly, clutching the envelope to my chest. I came for my memories, I said, my voice low but steady. And I found the truth. Mike's jaw clenched. What truth? Emily tried to step between us. Mike, stop, please. He glared at her, then at me. You shouldn't be here, Mary. You signed everything over. This isn't your house anymore. I never signed anything, I replied quietly. You forged my name, didn't you? The silence that followed was thick enough to cut through. Mike's face twitched, a flicker of guilt flashing before he masked it. That's ridiculous. Emily's eyes filled with tears. He told me it was legal, Mom. He said you agreed. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I said softly, because the truth would have made you look at yourself. I took a slow step forward, holding the document out. This is Tom's real will. He left everything to me. You both knew that. Mike moved toward me, but Emily's voice broke through. Stop, Mike! Don't you dare! He froze, startled by the sharpness in her tone. I turned to her. You have a choice, Emily. Keep lying for him, or tell the truth your father died believing in. Her lips quivered. Then, with a trembling breath, she whispered, He made me hide it, said we needed the money to pay debts. I didn't want to lose him. Mike's voice rose. You think anyone will believe an old woman over me? I don't need them to, I said quietly. I have proof. From my bag, I pulled out my phone. I recorded our conversation. You just confessed. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mike lunged forward, snatching the paper from my hand. Emily gasped, trying to pull him back, but his anger spilled over like fire. You're not ruining this for us, he shouted. Emily's scream broke through the chaos. Mike, stop! But before he could tear the paper, the front door opened. A tall man stepped in, Mr. Reynolds, our old family lawyer. His gaze swept the room, calm but sharp. I came because your mother called me last night, he said to Emily. She said something didn't add up. I think I know why. Mike froze, the color draining from his face. Reynolds walked over, extending his hand. Mr. Langley, I'll take that document. Mike hesitated, but the authority in the lawyer's tone left no room for argument. Slowly, he handed it over. Reynolds unfolded the will, his eyes scanning the lines. This is legitimate, and the signatures, these here, this one was forged. He turned toward Mike. I'll be taking this to the authorities. Emily covered her mouth, sobbing. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I stood still, my heart breaking not out of anger but sorrow. You wanted comfort, but you traded it for conscience. She fell to her knees. Mom, I'm sorry. I knelt beside her, cupping her face. I forgive you, Emily, but forgiveness doesn't erase the truth. Behind us, Mike muttered, You'll regret this. Reynolds looked at him firmly. You're the one who should be afraid. The police arrived minutes later, called by the lawyer's assistant waiting outside. As they led Mike away, he glanced back once, his arrogance gone, replaced by quiet defeat. Emily stayed on the floor, crying softly. I ruined everything, didn't I? No, I said, standing. You still have time to rebuild what's left. I looked around the house, our family portraits, the walls once full of laughter, now echoing with guilt and silence. When family turns against you, the silence hurts more than the words. Comment true if you've lived this. Emily looked up. What will you do now? I smiled faintly. Live, finally. Mr. Reynolds approached. There's one more thing you should know, Mrs. Langley. Your husband left another letter for you in my care. He said I should give it to you only when the truth came out. My breath caught. A letter? He nodded, handing me a small, sealed envelope with my name written in Tom's familiar handwriting. I held it gently, afraid to break the seal. Emily whispered, What does it say? I shook my head. I'll read it when I'm ready. I turned toward the door, feeling the weight of years lift off my shoulders. The air outside was cool, the sky painted with the last colors of dusk. I clutched the letter to my chest and whispered, You were right, Tom. The truth always finds its way home. Have you ever spoken the truth and still been blamed? I said softly. Tap heart symbol if that pain feels familiar. As I walked down the porch steps, a single tear rolled down my cheek. Not from sadness, but release. But just as I reached the gate, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from an unknown number. Mrs. Langley, this is about your husband's account. There's something you need to see. I stopped in my tracks. The breeze stilled, my fingers trembling as I stared at the screen. A shadow passed over my heart. What could they possibly mean, your husband's account? He was gone. Or was there something he'd left behind that none of us had discovered yet? The paper in my hand fluttered, and I whispered, "Tom, what else did you hide from me?" The room was silent. The air felt heavy, like even the walls were holding their breath. I sat across from Emily and Mike at the long wooden table in a lawyer's office. Mr. Reynolds placed a folder in front of him, his expression unreadable. On the far side sat 2 police officers, their notepads ready. Emily's eyes were swollen from crying. Mike looked pale but defiant. "We're here," Reynolds began, "to finalize the case regarding the forgery of Mr. Thomas Langley's will and property documents." He looked directly at Mike. "Mr. Langley, you are aware of the charges against you." Mike crossed his arms. "I already told you it was a misunderstanding." I looked at him quietly. "A misunderstanding doesn't erase a signature you forged." His gaze darted to me, full of bitterness. "You think this makes you noble? You ruined your own family." Emily flinched. "Stop, Mike, please." The lawyer opened the folder, revealing the documents I'd found in the cedared chest beside Tom's letter. "This is the original will, signed and notarized. The handwriting, witness statements, and date all align with the official record." He paused, sliding another paper forward. "And this is the version you submitted, forged, manipulated, and filed using Mrs. Langley's falsified consent." Gasps filled the room from the onlookers and staff. Mike's jaw tightened, but the evidence spoke for itself. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Years of silence, of being treated like a burden, now condensed into this one trembling moment. Reynolds continued, "Furthermore, there is an audio recording provided by Mrs. Langley where both of you admitted to hiding the real document." He pressed play. My own voice echoed softly from the phone speaker. "You forged my name, didn't you?" Then Mike's reply, bitter and sharp. "You think anyone will believe an old woman over me?" Gasps again. Emily covered her face, crying softly. The truth was no longer hidden. Mike's shoulders sagged as the last thread of denial snapped. "You did this to your own mother," Reynolds said, voice quiet but cutting. "How could you?" Mike said nothing. The police officers stood, reading the charge aloud. "Michael Carter Langley, you are under arrest for document forgery, fraud, and coercion." He stood slowly, his arrogance gone, replaced by the hollow look of defeat. As they took him toward the door, he glanced back once. No anger now, just shame. Emily sobbed quietly. "Mom, I didn't mean for any of this." I turned to her, voice trembling but calm. "You chose silence when truth needed a voice." She nodded through tears. "I'll live with that." The officer led Mike out, and the door shut behind him. The silence afterward was heavier than any argument could have been. Reynolds turned to me. "Mrs. Langley, justice is served. The property will be restored in your name. You've shown remarkable strength." I nodded slowly, my hands trembling on the table. "If seeing truth win gives you hope, tap heart symbol so more people see this." Emily wiped her eyes. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness." I reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "Maybe not yet, but I still pray you find your way back to love." She looked at me with disbelief. "After everything?" I smiled weakly. "Because I'm still your mother." Reynolds handed me another envelope. "Your husband left you this letter, Mrs. Langley. He wanted it read when the truth had fully come to light." I opened it carefully. Tom's handwriting filled the page. "My dearest Mary, if you are reading this, then truth has finally found its way back to you. I knew you'd be strong enough to face it. I left something for Emily, too, a separate letter she must read alone. Maybe it will remind her what family truly means. You were always the heart of this home. Don't let them turn your kindness into weakness. Love, forever, Tom. Tears blurred the ink as I folded the letter and handed the smaller envelope to Emily. She looked at it like it was fire. I can't, I interrupted softly. He wrote it for you. Whatever it says, it's meant to heal, not hurt. She held it close to her chest, whispering, I'm sorry, Dad. Reynolds stood. Mrs. Langley, once the legal papers are processed, the property and funds will return to you. The media may reach out for a statement.
Would you like to say anything publicly? I thought for a moment, then said quietly, Tell them I'm not proud that justice came, but that truth did. Outside, people from the community had gathered. Some knew me from my videos, others from the neighborhood. Whispers filled the air. That's her, the mother her own daughter betrayed. She still forgave them. Some people only realized too late what real wealth is. I stepped outside slowly, sunlight warming my face after months of cold. I felt Tom's presence beside me, calm and strong. They thought she was weak, I whispered. She showed them what real strength looks like. A woman in the crowd touched my hand. You've given us hope, she said softly. Sometimes justice takes time, but it always comes. Comment true if you believe that. That night I sat alone in the house that had once been full of laughter. Every creak, every shadow felt like an echo of the past. I placed Tom's letter on the mantel beside our old wedding photo. For the first time in years, I breathed deeply, not in grief, but peace. Yet as the clock ticked toward midnight, I couldn't shake the feeling that something remained unfinished. My phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. Mrs. Langley, we need to talk. It's about your husband's account. Please don't ignore this. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. What more could there be? What secret still lingered in the shadows of his life? Justice was done, but peace still felt far away.